I never thought I'd see my parents again after they abandoned me at age 8. That day is burned into my memory forever. Mom and Dad dropping me off at Grandma Rose's house with just a small backpack of clothes, promising they'd be back soon. "We just need some time to sort things out, Emma," Mom had said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Be good for Grandma." They never came back. The first few months were the hardest. Every day, I'd sit by Grandma's front window after school, watching cars drive by, hoping the next one would be them. Every night, I'd cry myself to sleep, wondering what I'd done wrong, why I wasn't good enough for them to stay. But Grandma Rose was my saving grace. "You're perfect just as you are, my sweet girl," she'd tell me, wiping away my tears. "Some people aren't ready to be parents, and that's not your fault. But I'm here, and I'll always be here." Grandma Rose wasn't just any grandmother. She was brilliant, sophisticated, and as I later learned, incredibly wealthy, but you'd never know it from how she lived. Our home was modest. She drove an old Toyota, and she still worked as a high school principal because she loved shaping young minds. The only hints of her wealth were her impeccable taste in art and the way she'd sometimes casually mention her investments while reading the financial papers. Under Grandma's care, I flourished. She encouraged my love of science, hired tutors when I struggled with math, and celebrated every achievement, no matter how small. When I won first place in the state science fair at 13, she threw a huge party and invited all my friends. "That's my girl," she beamed, hugging me tight. "You're going to change the world someday." Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Grandma and I against the world. She never spoke badly about my parents, but she made sure I knew their absence wasn't my fault. "Sometimes people make choices they can't take back," she'd say wisely. "But those choices reflect on them, not on you." I stopped thinking about my parents, stopped hoping they'd return, stopped caring why they left. I had Grandma, and that was enough. She was more than enough. Then came my 18th birthday. Grandma threw me an elegant party at her favorite restaurant, invited all my friends, and gave me a beautiful necklace, a delicate gold chain with a small key pendant. "This is more than just jewelry, Emma," she said mysteriously. "Keep it safe. You'll understand when the time comes." I didn't know then that it would be our last celebration together. 3 months later, Grandma Rose collapsed at school. By the time I reached the hospital, she was gone. Heart attack, the doctors said. Quick and painless. But the pain I felt was anything but quick. It tore through me like a hurricane, leaving nothing but emptiness in its wake. The funeral was beautiful, just as Grandma would have wanted. Her former students filled the church, sharing stories of how she changed their lives. I sat alone in the front row, clutching the key necklace she'd given me, trying to be strong like she taught me to be. That's when I saw them. My parents walked into the church like they belonged there, like they hadn't abandoned their daughter a decade ago. Mom's hair was grayer, Dad had gained weight, but I'd have known them anywhere. My heart stopped, then started racing. They made their way toward me, faces full of what looked like concern. "Emma, sweetheart," Mom said, reaching for my hand. I pulled away instinctively. "We came as soon as we heard. We're so sorry about your grandmother." Dad nodded solemnly. "We know it's been a long time, but we're here now. You'll come home with us, of course. You're still a minor for a few more months, and we're your legal guardians." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. 10 years of silence, and now they wanted to play happy family? "I'm not going anywhere with you," I managed to say, my voice shaking with anger. Grandma Rose was my home. "Now, Emma," Mom said, her voice taking on a stern edge I remembered from childhood. "Don't be difficult. We're your parents. You have no choice in this matter." Actually, a deep voice interrupted, "She has every choice." We turned to see a tall man in an expensive suit walking toward us, carrying a leather briefcase. "I'm James Morrison, Rose Montgomery's attorney, and we need to have a conversation about your grandmother's will." My parents' expressions changed instantly. Mom's eyes lit up with barely concealed interest, while Dad straightened his tie nervously. "Of course," he said smoothly. "We're her only living relatives, after all." Mr. Morrison's face remained impassive. "Let's step into the private room. There are some matters that need to be addressed immediately." As we followed him, I noticed my hand had moved to clutch the key necklace Grandma had given me. Somehow, I knew everything was about to change. Again. I just didn't realize how much. The private room at the church felt too small for the tension building inside it. Mr. Morrison sat across from us at a polished wooden table, methodically arranging papers from his briefcase. My parents flanked me like anxious vultures, trying to appear concerned while their eyes kept darting to the documents. Before we begin, Mr. Morrison said, adjusting his glasses, "Miss Emma, would you please show me your necklace?" My parents looked confused, but I reached for the key pendant Grandma had given me. Mr. Morrison nodded, a slight smile crossing his face. "Perfect. Now let me read the terms of Rose Montgomery's will." He cleared his throat and began reading. "I, Rose Montgomery, being of sound mind, declare this to be my last will and testament." The legal language washed over me until one sentence made my heart stop. "To my beloved granddaughter, Emma Grace Montgomery, I leave my entire estate, including all properties, investments, bank accounts, and business holdings, currently valued at approximately $47 million. The room erupted in chaos. $47 million? Mom shrieked, her face turning red. "That's impossible." Rose was a school principal. Dad slammed his hand on the table. "This is ridiculous. We're her only children. You can't tell me she left everything to a teenager." Mr. Morrison remained calm. "There's more. The will specifies that Emma is to be legally emancipated immediately, with a trust established in her name. The key she wears opens a safety deposit box containing additional documents and instructions." My head was spinning. $47 million? Grandma Rose, my modest, Toyota-driving grandmother, had been worth $47 million. "This will is dated just last month," Mom said, her voice dangerous. "We'll contest it. Emma's still a minor. We're her legal guardians, and we have rights." "Actually," Mr. Morrison interrupted, "you surrendered those rights 10 years ago." He pulled out another document. "This is a copy of the abandonment charges Rose filed against you both after you left Emma. You never responded to the court summons, so she was granted full legal custody. You haven't been Emma's guardians for a very long time." I watched my parents' faces transform. The fake concern melted away, replaced by naked greed and fury. "Emma, sweetie," Mom tried again, her voice honey sweet. "You don't understand what you're doing. Let us help you manage this. We're family." "Family?" The word felt like poison in my mouth. Where was family when you left me? Where was family for 10 years while Grandma Rose raised me? "We made a mistake," Dad said quickly. "We were young, struggling. But we're here now. We can make it right." "Make it right?" I stood up, shaking with anger. "You're only here because you found out about the money. Did you even care that Grandma died? Did you ever care about me?" Their silence was answer enough. Mr. Morrison cleared his throat. "There's one more thing. Rose left a letter for you, Emma." He handed me a sealed envelope. "She asked that you read it alone." I took the envelope and walked out, leaving my parents protesting behind me. Finding a quiet corner of the church, I opened the letter with trembling hands. "My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've just learned the truth about our family's wealth. I know it's a shock. I kept it secret for many reasons, but mostly to protect you and let you grow up understanding the value of hard work and kindness. I watched your parents choose money over love many times. They abandoned you because I refused to keep funding their extravagant lifestyle. They chose wealth over their own daughter, and in doing so, gave me the greatest gift, you. The key I gave you opens more than just a safety deposit box. It opens the door to your future. I've made arrangements for everything. The house is yours. Your college fund is secure. The family business awaits when you're ready. But most importantly, remember this. You are loved. Not for your inheritance, but for who you are. The same quiet strength that helped you survive being abandoned has prepared you to handle this responsibility. Don't let your parents manipulate you. They'll try, but you're stronger than they know. You're a Montgomery woman, and we don't break easily. All my love, Grandma Rose." Tears rolled down my cheeks as I finished reading. In death as in life, Grandma Rose was protecting me, guiding me, loving me. I touched the key around my neck, understanding finally flowing through me. When I returned to the private room, my parents were still arguing with Mr. Morrison about contesting the will. They fell silent when I walked in. "Emma," Mom started, but I held up my hand. "I want you to leave," I said, my voice steady. "Both of you. You're not welcome here." "Now listen here," Dad began angrily, but Mr. Morrison interrupted. "Should I call security?" he asked calmly. As the sole heir and property owner, Emma has the right to have you removed." They stared at me, these strangers who shared my blood, and I saw the moment they realized they'd lost. Not just the money, but any chance of manipulating me. "This isn't over," Mom hissed as they gathered their things. "You'll regret this." I watched them leave, feeling oddly peaceful. "What happens now?" I asked Mr. Morrison. He smiled. "Now we visit that safety deposit box. Your grandmother left quite detailed instructions about the next steps. Shall we?" As we left the church, I caught a glimpse of my parents in the parking lot, arguing furiously. They'd lost everything today. Not that they ever really had it. They'd chosen money over love once before, and that choice had finally caught up with them. I touched the key around my neck and smiled. Grandma Rose had given me more than just an inheritance. She'd given me the power to stand on my own, to face whatever came next. And something told me this was just the beginning. The safety deposit box at First National Bank contained exactly what Grandma Rose had promised, and so much more. As Mr. Morrison helped me go through the contents, I discovered just how thoroughly my grandmother had planned everything. Inside were property deeds, stock certificates, and detailed instructions about the family business, Montgomery Investments, a company I'd never even known existed. But what caught my eye was a USB drive labeled "Watch Me First." Mr. Morrison pulled out his laptop, and Grandma Rose's face appeared on screen. She looked healthy, vibrant. This must have been recorded just before she died. "Emma, my darling girl," she began, her familiar smile warming my heart. "If you're watching this, then everything has happened as I expected. Your parents showed up at my funeral, didn't they? Trying to claim what was never theirs to begin with." I gasped. Even from beyond, she'd known exactly what would happen. "You see, Emma, there's something you need to know about your parents. They didn't just abandon you. They tried to steal everything from me first. Your father, my own son, and your mother attempted to transfer all my assets to their names while I was on a business trip. They thought I was just a naive school principal. They never knew I was the one who built Montgomery Investments from the ground up." She paused, her expression hardening. "When I discovered their scheme, I gave them a choice. Stay and live modestly while learning the value of hard work, or leave. They chose to leave. They left you behind thinking I'd come begging them to return. They never understood that by abandoning you, they gave up the greatest treasure of all." Tears streamed down my face as Grandma continued. "I watched you grow into an extraordinary young woman. Kind, intelligent, hardworking. Everything they're not. That's why I know you're ready for this responsibility." The video continued with detailed instructions about the company, the properties, and most importantly, the charitable foundation she'd established. The Montgomery Foundation provides scholarships to abandoned children. You'll be its new director. Use our wealth to help others like yourself, Emma. That's our true legacy. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Mr. Morrison introduced me to the company's board of directors, who'd all known and respected Grandma Rose. They welcomed me warmly, ready to guide me as I learned the business. My parents didn't give up easily. They hired lawyers, tried to contest the will, even attempted to prove Grandma Rose was mentally unstable when she wrote it. But she'd been too thorough. Every document was in order, every decision legally sound. Their final attempt came 3 months later. They showed up at the Montgomery Investments office, causing a scene in the lobby. "We're her parents," Mom shouted as security held them back. "She can't keep us out." I met them calmly, dressed in one of Grandma's elegant suits, the key necklace still at my throat. "Actually, I can, and I will." "We'll go to the press," Dad threatened. "Tell everyone how you stole our inheritance." I smiled, channeling Grandma Rose's quiet strength. "Go ahead. Tell them how you abandoned your 8-year-old daughter. Tell them how you tried to steal from your own mother. I'm sure the press will love that story." They deflated, finally understanding they'd lost everything, not just the money, but any chance of manipulating me. "Goodbye," I said firmly. "Don't come back." As I watched them leave, I touched the key around my neck, feeling Grandma's presence with me. That evening, I approved the first round of scholarships from the Montgomery Foundation. 20 children from broken homes would get a chance at a better life. Sitting in Grandma's old office, my office now, I looked at her photo on the wall and smiled. She'd given me more than just an inheritance. She'd given me purpose, strength, and the power to help others. The old Toyota still sits in my garage, even though I could afford any car I want. It reminds me of where I came from, of the humble, hard-working woman who taught me that true wealth isn't about money. It's about how you use it to make the world better. Sometimes I wear her old principal's blazer to board meetings. The board members who knew her smile when they see it. They understand. I'm not just Rose Montgomery's hair, I'm her legacy. As for my parents, I heard they moved to another state, telling anyone who will listen about their ungrateful daughter. But their words can't hurt me anymore. I know who I am. I'm Emma Grace Montgomery, and like my grandmother before me, I choose love over money, kindness over greed, and helping others over helping myself. That's what real family does.
The Harrison family boardroom hadn't changed in 30 years. The same mahogany table dominated the space, surrounded by leather chairs that had witnessed decades of deals, betrayals, and family politics. Family photos lined the walls, carefully curated images of success and unity. I noticed I wasn't in any of them. I'm Sarah Harrison, though the family rarely used my name anymore. To them, I was just the disappointment, the cautionary tale they whispered about at charity galas and country club brunches. Poor Thomas Harrison's youngest daughter, they'd say. The one who walked away from the family business. Today's emergency family meeting had been called to discuss the company's future, though I knew things were far worse than they realized. I sat quietly at the far end of the table, watching my relatives posture and preen, none of them aware that their precious Harrison Industries was already mine. Uncle James stood at the head of the table, his custom suit unable to hide his growing paunch. "The numbers don't lie," he announced, pointing to the projection screen. "Last quarter was our worst in 20 years. The board is getting nervous." My cousin William, who'd been handed a VP position straight out of college, scoffed. "The board works for us. We're Harrisons." If only they knew that the board now worked for me, through a complex web of shell companies and proxy votes. Phoenix Enterprises, my company, had spent the last 3 years quietly acquiring Harrison Industries stock, gaining controlling interest while hiding behind layers of corporate anonymity. "The tech division is hemorrhaging money," my sister Elizabeth added, not bothering to look up from her phone. She'd been made Chief Innovation Officer last year, despite having no background in technology. "We should probably sell it off." I hid a smile. The tech division was actually the company's most valuable asset. They were just too stubborn to modernize it properly. Under my leadership at Phoenix, we developed the software that would make it worth billions. "What are you smirking at?" Uncle James suddenly turned his attention to me. "Find something amusing about our situation?" The room fell silent. Even Elizabeth looked up from her phone. "I was just thinking about solutions," I said carefully. Uncle James's face reddened. "Solutions? From you? The girl who walked away from a director position to play startup founder. 5 years ago, I'd refused the role of marketing director, a position created purely to keep me occupied while my cousins ran the actual business. Instead, I'd used my inheritance to start Phoenix Enterprises, focusing on digital transformation and strategic acquisitions. "I have some experience in corporate restructuring," I offered mildly. William laughed. "Experience? Running your little tech company from a WeWork office? This is a billion-dollar corporation, Sarah. Leave the real business to people who understand it." I thought about my real office, the top 3 floors of the city's most prestigious business tower. The WeWork space they mocked was just a front, a way to keep them underestimating me while I built something they couldn't imagine. My father sat silently watching the exchange. He'd stepped down as CEO last year, handing control to Uncle James despite my warnings about his outdated management style. Dad had always been weak when it came to his older brother, too willing to keep peace in the family at any cost. "Sarah's company has had some success," Dad ventured weakly. "Maybe we should hear her out." "Success?" Uncle James snorted. "Thomas, your daughter plays business owner while the rest of us manage a real corporate empire. She's worthless to this family and you know it." The word hung in the air, worthless. How many times had they used that word to describe me over the years? When I questioned their outdated practices. When I suggested modernizing our technology. When I dared to strike out on my own instead of accepting the role they'd chosen for me. Elizabeth rolled her eyes. "Can we focus on actual solutions? I have a lunch reservation at Le Cirque." I checked my watch discreetly. In exactly 4 minutes, everything would change. Phoenix's acquisition of Harrison Industries would be announced to the board, followed by an emergency press release. The family would learn that their empire had been sold right out from under them. The tech division isn't the problem, I said, earning glares from around the table. Your entire business model is outdated. You're losing market share because you refuse to innovate. How dare you? Uncle James slammed his hand on the table. I've run this company for the past year with the same principles your grandfather established. We don't need your Silicon Valley nonsense here. I thought about my grandfather, the original Harrison innovator. He'd built this company through bold moves and forward thinking, everything the family now rejected in the name of tradition. Those principles are exactly why you're failing, I replied calmly. The market has changed. Technology has evolved. But Harrison Industries is stuck in the past because you're too proud to adapt. Enough. Uncle James roared, his face purple with rage. You lost the right to criticize this company when you walked away from it. You're worthless to this family. Worthless to this business. Just then his secretary burst through the door, her face pale. Sir, Mr. Harrison, the board, they're calling an emergency meeting. Phoenix Enterprises just bought controlling interest in Harrison Industries. The room exploded in chaos. William dropped his Mont Blanc pen. Elizabeth's phone clattered to the table. Uncle James stood frozen, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Phoenix Enterprises? My father whispered. But that's Pie Company, I finished for him, standing slowly. Though I prefer to call it by its full name, Phoenix Global Enterprises. We're the largest digital transformation firm in the country, specializing in modernizing outdated companies exactly like Harrison Industries. The silence was absolute. Years of dismissal, of mockery, of being called worthless, all of it crystallized in this moment of absolute victory. That's impossible, William stammered. Phoenix is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. You just have that little startup. I pulled out my phone, pulled up the Phoenix Enterprises website and projected it onto the screen. There was my photo listed as founder and CEO. There were our acquisition records, our global offices, our market valuations. The little startup was a cover, I explained, enjoying their shocked expressions. It let me build something extraordinary while you were all too busy mocking me to notice. Every time you dismissed me as worthless, I bought more shares. Every time you laughed at my little company, I grew stronger. Elizabeth had gone pale. The tech division will be completely restructured, I confirmed. Along with everything else. The board meeting in 10 minutes will confirm me as the new CEO. The press release goes out at noon. Uncle James finally found his voice. You can't do this. We're family. Family. I laughed softly. Was it family when you called me worthless? When you dismissed every idea I had? When you turned this company into a playground for your entitled children while running it into the ground? My father stood up shakily. Sir, please. We can talk about this. We could have talked years ago. I cut him off. You could have listened when I warned you about Uncle James. When I tried to show you how to save this company. But you chose your roles. The dismissive uncle, the weak father, the mocking cousins. Now I'm choosing mine. The secretary was still standing by the door, clutching a stack of papers. Sir, the press is already calling. They want comments on the acquisition. Uncle James sank into his chair, all his bluster evaporating. Comments? Comments on how my worthless niece outsmarted us all. Oh, I'm not worthless anymore, I smiled. I'm your boss. The room erupted again. Elizabeth started crying, William was yelling into his phone trying to reach his lawyer, and Uncle James looked like he might have a stroke. But I wasn't done. Not even close. I walked to the head of the table, took Uncle James's seat and opened my laptop. Now shall we discuss the restructuring plan? I have some ideas about the tech division. The family that had dismissed me for years sat in stunned silence as I began outlining my vision for their company. My company now. The worthless daughter had become the most powerful person in the room and we were just getting started. The next few hours passed in a blur of chaos and revelation. The board meeting was brief and decisive. My ownership stake left them no choice but to confirm me as CEO. The press release went out exactly at noon, and within minutes Harrison Industries' stock price jumped 15%. The market, it seemed, approved of the change in leadership. My family, however, was falling apart. "This is illegal," Uncle James shouted, pacing the boardroom after the meeting. "You must have manipulated something, broken some law." "Everything was perfectly legal," I interrupted calmly. "Maybe if you'd spent more time actually reading financial reports instead of bragging at country clubs, you'd have noticed Phoenix buying up shares over the last 3 years." Elizabeth was frantically texting her lawyer friends, but I knew it was useless. I'd made sure every aspect of the takeover was ironclad. "Your position as Chief Innovation Officer is terminated, by the way," I told her. "Along with William's VP role. We'll be bringing in people who actually understand technology and business operations. You can't fire us." William exploded. "We're Harrisons." "So am I," I reminded him. "The Harrison you all called worthless. How does it feel to be fired by someone who's worthless?" My father sat quietly in the corner, looking older than I'd ever seen him. "Where did we go wrong?" he muttered. "How did we not see this coming?" "You saw what you wanted to see," I answered. "A rebellious daughter who refused to play by your rules. It never occurred to you that I was playing a different game entirely." Just then my assistant Catherine entered the room. "Ms. Harrison, the transition team is ready, and the auditors would like to begin their review." Uncle James went pale. "Auditors?" "Of course," I smiled. "We need to understand exactly how much damage your leadership has done. Those country club memberships charged to the company, the personal expenses hidden as business costs, the questionable loans to family members. I'm sure the SE will be very interested." "You would destroy your own family?" Elizabeth whispered. "You never treated me like family," I replied. "You treated me like an embarrassment, a failure, someone who needed to be hidden away or controlled. Now you can experience what it feels like to be powerless." My phone buzzed. The first wave of changes was ready to be implemented. "Catherine, please escort my relatives to security. They'll need to clear out their offices immediately." "This isn't over," Uncle James growled, but his voice shook. "The family won't stand for this. The family doesn't have a choice. Phoenix owns 58% of Harrison Industries now. I own your jobs, your futures, and every secret you've tried to hide." As security arrived to escort them out, I turned to my father. "You can stay, Dad. As an advisor. If you're willing to actually listen this time." He looked at me for a long moment, seeing me clearly, perhaps for the first time. "When did you become so powerful?" "I always was. You just never noticed." The next week was a whirlwind of changes. The old Harrison Industries logo was replaced with a modern design. The tech division, far from being sold off, became our central focus. I brought in a team of innovators and digital experts, people chosen for talent rather than family connections. The family, predictably, didn't go quietly. Uncle James tried to rally the other shareholders, only to discover that most had already sold to Phoenix. Elizabeth attempted to leak damaging information to the press, but her stories of the worthless Harrison daughter who ruined the family business were overshadowed by Phoenix's soaring stock price and innovative new projects. William tried a different approach, showing up at my office with an olive branch. "Come on, Sarah," he wheedled. "We're cousins. Surely we can work something out. I've learned my lesson." I leaned back in my chair, his old chair actually, and studied him. "Have you? What lesson would that be?" "That I underestimated you. That we all did. But we can fix this. Make it a real family company again." "It is a real family company," I replied. "Just not the family you wanted it to be. Your position has been filled by someone qualified. I suggest you update your resume." He left in tears, another first in Harrison family history. The audit revealed exactly what I'd suspected: years of financial mismanagement, nepotism, and hidden corruption. Uncle James had been funneling company money into his personal accounts. Elizabeth had hired her friends as consultants with massive retainers. William had been trading company stock based on inside information. "The SEC will want to investigate," my legal team advised. "Give them everything," I instructed. "Every document, every transaction, every hidden account. Let them see exactly how the mighty Harrison family did business." My father, watching from his reduced role as advisor, seemed to age years in weeks. "They'll go to jail," he said quietly. "They made their choices," I replied. "Just like they chose to call me worthless." The fallout was spectacular. Uncle James faced criminal charges for embezzlement. Elizabeth and William were banned from trading securities. The Harrison family name, once synonymous with old money privilege, became associated with corruption and failure. And through it all, Phoenix rose. Our stock price doubled in the first month as investors recognized the potential I'd seen years ago. The tech division, properly funded and staffed, launched innovations that put us years ahead of competitors. The company culture transformed from an old boys club to a meritocracy where talent and creativity thrived. 6 months after the takeover, I sat in my office reviewing quarterly reports. The view from the top floor was spectacular, but I wasn't looking at the city. I was looking at a photo on my desk. The last family Christmas before I left Harrison Industries. Everyone smiling, successful, proud. And me, standing at the edge, already planning my rebellion. Catherine entered with more documents to sign. "Your uncle's sentencing is tomorrow," she reminded me. "Will you attend?" I thought about it. Uncle James would stand before a judge, his reputation in tatters, his arrogance finally broken. The family would be there watching another Harrison fall. "No," I decided. "I have a company to run." She nodded and turned to leave, then paused. The new family photos for the boardroom arrived. "Would you like me to hang them?" "Take down all the old ones," I instructed. "This isn't a family company anymore. It's something better." That evening, as I worked late in my office, my father knocked on the door. He looked tired, humbled, but there was something else in his expression. Pride, maybe. "Finally. I underestimated you," he said simply. "You all did. Can you ever forgive us?" I considered the question, thinking of all the years of dismissal and contempt. "Forgiveness isn't the point, Dad. This was never about revenge. It was about proving that success doesn't have to look like what this family imagined. It was about building something better than what you tried to force me to be." He nodded slowly. "You certainly did that. The company, it's extraordinary now. It always could have been. You just couldn't see past your own traditions to recognize it." He turned to leave, then stopped. "For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. Even if I don't understand how you became this person." "I was always this person," I said quietly. "You just never saw me." After he left, I stood at the window watching the city lights come alive. Somewhere out there, my relatives were preparing for Uncle James's sentencing, their lives forever changed by the worthless daughter they'd mocked. Elizabeth was selling her penthouse to pay legal fees. William was interviewing for entry-level positions, learning humility the hard way. But I wasn't thinking about them. I was thinking about the company, about its future, about all the possibilities that opened up when you stopped trying to preserve the past and started building something new. The worthless daughter had become the most valuable Harrison of all. And she was just getting started. Catherine's voice came through the intercom. "Your 7 p.m. is here. The Silicon Valley Venture Capital team?" I smiled, straightening my jacket. Time to show another group of old money traditionalists what the future looked like. "Send them in," I said. "And Catherine, have the old family photos sent to my relatives. They'll need the memories more than I do." The photos would arrive at their reduced circumstances. Elizabeth's downgraded apartment, William's mother's guest room, Uncle James's attorney's office. A reminder of what they'd lost, what they'd thrown away by underestimating the daughter they'd dismissed. But I wouldn't be in those photos anymore. I had new pictures to take, new successes to document, new traditions to build. After all, success is the best revenge. And I had succeeded beyond their wildest nightmares. The conference room of Martinez Technologies hadn't changed in 20 years. The same outdated motivational posters lined the walls, the same scratched mahogany table dominated the space, and the same stale corporate politics were about to destroy my future. I sat at the far end, watching my father prepare to make the announcement that would change everything. "I'm Olivia Martinez, though most people in the company still called me Daniel's daughter. My identity forever tied to the man who was about to betray me. I'd spent 15 years working my way up through every department, learning the business from the ground up, preparing to take over as CEO when my father retired. But family businesses rarely follow merit, and blood isn't always thicker than ambition. As you all know," my father began, addressing the board members gathered around the table, "I'll be stepping down as CEO at the end of the quarter." He paused, his eyes deliberately avoiding mine. "After careful consideration, I've chosen my successor. I gripped my tablet tighter, years of financial reports and strategic plans displayed on its screen. I'd transformed our outdated manufacturing processes, modernized our technology infrastructure, and doubled our market share in Asian markets. By any objective measure, I was the most qualified candidate for CEO. But objectivity had nothing to do with what was about to happen. Jason Martinez will be taking over as Chief Executive Officer, my father announced, gesturing to my cousin who sat smugly across the table. His fresh perspective and ambitious vision will lead Martinez Technologies into the future. The room erupted in polite applause. Jason stood, straightening his Italian silk tie. Another gift from my father who'd been grooming him for this moment while I was actually running the company. Thank you, Uncle Daniel. Jason smiled, all white teeth and hollow charm. I promised to uphold the Martinez family legacy. As if he understood what that word meant. Jason had joined the company 3 years ago, fresh from his MBA at Harvard, where he'd spent more time networking at cocktail parties than studying business. He'd never worked a day in manufacturing, never solved a supply chain crisis, never done anything except play golf with board members and curry favor with my father. Olivia will continue as Chief Operating Officer, my father added, almost as an afterthought. Her operational experience will be valuable to the transition. Operational experience. 15 years reduced to a dismissive footnote. I watched the board members nod approvingly. They'd never questioned my father's decisions before. Why start now? To them, I was just the daughter who worked too hard, who focused on spreadsheets instead of social connections, who didn't fit their image of a proper CEO. Would anyone like to add anything? My father asked, his tone making it clear that dissent was not welcome. I stood slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. Actually, yes. The room went silent. Even Jason's practiced smile faltered slightly. Olivia, my father warned, but I continued. In the past 5 years, I've increased our efficiency by 40%, modernized our production facilities, and established partnerships that have opened new markets across Asia. Our stock price has doubled under my operational leadership. Numbers aren't everything, Jason interrupted smoothly. Leadership is about vision, about relationships. About being the right kind of Martinez? I finished for him. The kind that plays golf instead of learning the business? The kind that networks at country clubs while others actually run the company? That's enough, my father's voice cracked like a whip. The decision is made. Jason will be CEO. If you can't accept that, perhaps you should reconsider your position here. The threat hung in the air, heavy with decades of disappointment. I looked around the table at the board members, avoiding my gaze, at Jason's smirk of victory, at my father's stern disapproval. You're right, I said quietly, closing my tablet. I should reconsider my position. I walked to the door, then turned back. Just remember this moment when you chose the right kind of Martinez over the right kind of leader. Olivia, my father called after me, but I was already gone. That evening, I sat in my home office, surrounded by the awards and achievements that apparently meant nothing compared to Jason's ability to charm old men on a golf course. My phone buzzed continuously. Messages from colleagues expressing sympathy, veiled job offers from competitors, even a few board members trying to smooth things over. I ignored them all, focusing instead on the document open on my laptop. It was a business plan I'd been developing in secret for the past year, ever since I first suspected my father would choose Jason over me. The name at the top read Phoenix Industries, a company that would rise from the ashes of my father's betrayal. My personal investment account showed the results of 15 years of careful saving and strategic investing. While Jason had spent his bonuses on sports cars and luxury vacations, I'd been building a war chest. It wasn't enough to compete with Martinez Technologies directly, not yet, but it was enough to start something that could. A knock at my door interrupted my planning. It was my mother, carrying a cup of tea like she used to when I was young and struggling with homework. Your father thinks you'll calm down, she said, setting the cup beside me. Come back tomorrow, apologize, accept the position. I laughed softly. Accept being passed over for Jason? Except that 15 years of work means nothing compared to 3 years of networking. It's complicated, Mihija, she sighed. Your father. He has certain ideas about how things should be. Yes, and those ideas are going to destroy the company. She looked at my laptop screen, her eyes widening slightly at the business plan. What are you planning? Something new, I said simply. Something better. You'll break your father's heart. I closed the laptop slowly. He broke mine first. The next morning, I arrived early at Martinez Technologies, before the usual crowd of employees. My office was exactly as I'd left it, walls lined with engineering degrees and industry awards, shelves filled with binders documenting every project I'd led, every success I'd achieved. It took less than an hour to pack it all into boxes. 15 years of dedication reduced to a few cardboard containers. My resignation letter was brief and professional. No mention of betrayal or disappointment, just a formal notification that I was leaving to pursue other opportunities. I left it on my father's desk along with my company ID and parking pass. As I walked through the lobby for the last time, I heard my name being called. It was Carlos, one of our best engineers, someone I'd mentored from an entry-level position. "Is it true?" he asked, falling into step beside me. "You're leaving." I nodded, shifting my box of belongings. "But what about the Asian expansion? The modernization projects? Everything we've been working on?" "Jason's in charge now," I said. "I'm sure he has his own vision." Carlos snorted. "His vision doesn't extend past the country club. Half the engineering team is already updating their resumes." I paused at my car, an idea forming. "Tell them to hold off on sending those resumes. I might have something for them soon." His eyes lit up. "You're starting something?" "Maybe," I smiled. "Keep your phone on." Over the next 6 months, I built Phoenix Industries from the ground up. My savings funded the initial setup, and my reputation in the industry helped secure early contracts. One by one, key employees from Martinez Technologies joined me: engineers, designers, project managers who valued competence over connections. We started small, focusing on niche markets that Martinez Technologies had ignored. While Jason held lengthy board meetings about maintaining traditions, we innovated. While he played golf with old clients, we secured new ones. While he relied on the Martinez name, we built something new. My father called exactly once, 3 months after I left. "This is childish, Olivia," he said, his voice stern. "Coming back to compete with us? You're only hurting yourself." "No, Dad," I replied calmly. "I'm building something better. Something based on merit instead of tradition. You'll never succeed against an established company like Martinez Technologies. You know that." I thought about the contracts we'd already secured, the patents we were developing, the talent we'd attracted. "Watch me." The call ended, and with it my last connection to Martinez Technologies. From that moment on, they weren't family, they were competitors. A year passed. Phoenix Industries grew faster than anyone expected. Our innovative designs and efficient processes attracted attention from major clients. We expanded into international markets, focusing on the Asian connections I'd developed at Martinez Technologies. Then came the rumors. Martinez Technologies was struggling. Jason's leadership style, all charm and no substance, was proving disastrous. Projects were delayed, quality was slipping, and key clients were getting restless. I watched from afar as the company my grandfather had built, the one I'd helped modernize, began to crumble under my cousin's incompetent leadership. Board meetings became more frequent, stock prices started to slip, and industry analysts began questioning the company's future. Then came the news I'd been waiting for. Martinez Technologies needed a bailout. They were seeking emergency funding to stay afloat, approaching every major competitor in the industry, including Phoenix Industries. The meeting was scheduled for a Wednesday morning. I sat in my modern office in my own building, watching the city wake up through floor-to-ceiling windows. On my desk sat the latest industry reports showing Phoenix Industries' meteoric rise contrasted with Martinez Technologies' steady decline. My assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Ms. Martinez? Your father and cousin have arrived for the meeting." I smiled, picking up the folder containing my response to their bailout request. "Send them in. It's time they learned what the wrong kind of Martinez can do." My father looked older than I remembered as he walked into my office, the past year of watching his company crumble evident in the new lines on his face. Jason followed, his expensive suit no longer fitting quite as well, his practiced smile strained at the edges. "Impressive building," my father said stiffly, looking around my office. The wall of windows, modern furniture, and cutting-edge technology stood in stark contrast to Martinez Technologies' outdated headquarters. "Thank you," I replied coolly. "We believe in investing in the future, not clinging to the past." Jason's smile flickered. He'd probably expected to find me running a small operation, not sitting atop a gleaming skyscraper with my company's name on it. "Please sit," I gestured to the chairs facing my desk. "I believe you wanted to discuss some financing options?" My father cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable being in the position of supplicant. "The market has been challenging lately. We're exploring strategic partnerships." "You need a bailout," I interrupted. "Let's not waste time with euphemisms. Martinez Technologies is hemorrhaging money, losing clients, and facing a potential bankruptcy without immediate intervention." Jason shifted in his chair. "The situation is temporary. With the right investment, your stock has dropped 60% in the past year." I cut him off, pulling up the figures on my tablet. "You've lost major contracts in 3 continents, your production facilities are operating at 40% capacity, and your latest product launch was delayed 6 months due to quality control issues." "How do you know all this?" my father demanded. I smiled. "I make it my business to know my competitors' weaknesses, especially when they're run by CEOs who think leadership is about golf games and cocktail parties." Jason's face reddened. "Now wait a minute." "No, you wait," I said firmly. "For the past year I've watched you dismantle everything I built at Martinez Technologies. The Asian partnerships I established collapsed because you couldn't be bothered to maintain relationships. The modernization projects I started abandoned because you didn't understand their importance. The talented employees I mentored, most of them work for me now." My father leaned forward. "Olivia, if this is about revenge—" "This isn't about revenge," I interrupted. "This is about business. You chose the wrong CEO and now you're facing the consequences." I opened the folder on my desk and slid out a document. "Phoenix Industries is prepared to offer financing to Martinez Technologies. Here are our terms." They leaned forward to read, and I watched their faces as the reality sank in. The terms were brutal but fair. We would provide the needed capital, but at a price that would effectively give Phoenix controlling interest in Martinez Technologies. "This is outrageous," Jason sputtered. "You want us to give up control of the company?" "No," I corrected him. "I want you to admit you've already lost control. Your choice now is between an orderly transition under my terms or a messy bankruptcy that will destroy whatever's left of the Martinez name." My father sat back, studying me with new eyes. "You planned this from the beginning, didn't you? Building Phoenix, watching us struggle, waiting for this moment." "I planned to succeed," I replied. "Your failure just made it easier." "We'll find other investors," Jason declared, but his voice lacked conviction. "Will you?" I pulled up another document on the screen behind me. "Your debt ratings were just downgraded again. No bank will touch you. Your competitors won't help because they'd rather watch you fail. I'm your only option." The silence that followed was heavy with realization. Everything had changed. The daughter they'd dismissed was now holding their fate in her hands. "The board will never agree," my father tried one last time. "The board already has," I smiled. "Did you think I wasn't talking to them? They're tired of watching their investments evaporate under Jason's leadership. They've approved the deal in principle. They're just waiting for your signature." Jason stood up abruptly. "This is a hostile takeover." "No, cousin," I said calmly. "This is karma. You wanted to be CEO? Congratulations. You ran the company exactly how I knew you would, straight into the ground." My father was still staring at the terms. "And what happens if we sign?" "Jason resigns immediately. You'll retain a position on the board but without voting rights. Martinez Technologies will become a subsidiary of Phoenix Industries, and will begin implementing the changes needed to save what's left of the company." "And if we refuse?" I shrugged. "Then I'll watch Martinez Technologies declare bankruptcy, buy the assets at auction for pennies on the dollar, and still end up owning everything. Your choice." My assistant knocked and entered with fresh copies of the agreement. "The board members are assembled in the conference room, Ms. Martinez. They're ready to proceed with either outcome." Jason collapsed back into his chair, the last of his arrogance finally draining away. My father picked up a pen, his hand trembling slightly. "We built this company," he said quietly. "Your grandfather and I. And I tried to save it, I finished for him. But you chose tradition over talent, connection over competence. Now you get to choose again. Sign the agreement or watch the company disappear completely." He signed. Jason followed, his signature barely legible. With those 2 strokes of a pen, control of Martinez Technologies passed to the daughter they deemed unworthy of leading it. "The board is waiting to ratify the agreement," I said, standing. "I believe you know the way to the conference room?" They walked out like defeated men, leaving me alone in my office. I took a moment to look at the city skyline, thinking about how far I'd come from that day in the Martinez Technologies conference room. The board meeting was brief. The agreement was ratified unanimously. No one wanted to be on the losing side of this battle. Jason cleaned out his office that afternoon, his executive parking space already reassigned. My father sat silently through the proceedings, watching his company pass into my control. That evening, as the sun set over the city, I sat in what had once been Jason's office at Martinez Technologies. The building felt different now, no longer a monument to outdated traditions, but a blank canvas for the future. My phone buzzed, a message from my mother. "Your father wants to talk." I declined the call. There would be time for family reconciliation later, if ever. Right now I had 2 companies to run and a point to prove. The next morning I called a company-wide meeting. Employees from both Phoenix and Martinez Technologies gathered in the main auditorium, uncertainty visible on their faces. "Some of you know me as the former CEO who left Martinez Technologies," I began. "Others know me as the founder of Phoenix Industries. Today I stand before you as both just a secretary." My sister Madeline's voice dripped with disdain as she led her friends through the office lobby. "Can you believe it? All that education and she ends up answering phones." I kept my eyes on my computer screen, pretending to be absorbed in scheduling while they passed my desk. In reality, I was reviewing the final details of a $500 million consulting contract. One that would make or break Madeline's husband's company. Not that they knew that. To them, I was just Alexandra Collins, failed golden child turned executive assistant at Walsh Consulting. They had no idea that A.C. Walsh, the mysterious CEO who'd built the firm into a global powerhouse, was sitting right in front of them. "It must be so embarrassing," one of Madeline's friends stage whispered. Wasn't she supposed to be the successful one? I had been once. Perfect grades, full scholarship to Harvard Business School, job offers from top firms. Then came the family crisis that changed everything. Dad's investment firm needs someone to take over. My parents had announced at what was supposed to be my graduation celebration. Madeline's husband Peter is perfect for the role. Never mind that Peter had barely passed business school, or that his only qualification was coming from the right social circle. Never mind that I'd spent my entire life preparing to lead the family business. "But I'm qualified," I'd protested. "I have the education, the experience. What we need," Dad had cut in, "is someone who understands our world. Peter has the right connections, the right background." By right background, they meant old money, country club memberships, and a last name that appeared regularly in society pages. Everything I'd rejected in favor of actually learning the business. "You're too academic," Mom had added delicately. "Too focused on details and numbers. This is about relationships, about maintaining our position." So Peter got the firm along with the mansion, the cars, and the family's respect. I got a suggestion to find a more suitable role, something administrative perhaps, where my detail-oriented nature would be an asset. They thought I'd given up when I took the executive assistant position at Walsh Consulting. What they didn't know was that I'd been building something far bigger than they could imagine. It started small. While working as an actual secretary, I noticed patterns in the consulting industry. Inefficiencies, opportunities, gaps in the market. At night, I developed my own consulting frameworks, approaches that combined analytical rigor with practical execution. Using my savings and a small inheritance from my grandmother, the only family member who'd believed in me, I started taking on small consulting projects under the name A.C. Walsh. The initials were a joke at first, a play on my full name, but they became something more. In a world where female CEOs were still rare, the ambiguous initials opened doors that Alexandra Collins might not have. Within 3 years, my side projects had grown into a legitimate firm. By 5 years, Walsh Consulting was handling major corporate transformations. I maintained my secretary position as the perfect cover, using it to gather intelligence and make connections while building my empire in plain sight. Now, 10 years later, I controlled one of the most respected consulting firms in the world, all while my family thought I was answering phones and getting coffee. Alexandra, Madeline's voice pulled me from my thoughts. Be a dear and let Peter know we're here for him. I looked up at my sister, taking in her designer outfit and carefully curated appearance. Next to her, her friends radiated the same artificial polish, all brand names and borrowed status. Mr. Peterson is in a meeting, I said professionally, using Peter's proper name as any good assistant would. The contract signing with Walsh Consulting's CEO. Madeline waved her hand dismissively. Yes, but surely you can interrupt. This is family. I checked my watch. In exactly 15 minutes I was supposed to be in that meeting. Not as a secretary but as the CEO who would decide whether to save or sink the family firm. The CEO is very particular about punctuality, I said mildly. Perhaps you could wait in the reception area? God, you've become so bureaucratic, Madeline sighed. Remember when you used to have actual ambitions? Before you settled for this. I thought about the contract sitting in my private office upstairs. The one that would determine whether Peter's mismanagement of Dad's firm led to total collapse or miraculous salvation. We all find our place, I said quietly. Speaking of places, one of her friends chimed in. Did you hear about the Miller merger? Peter's handling it personally. I bit back a smile. The Miller merger. Peter's latest disaster. He'd botched the negotiations so badly that both companies were now seeking Walsh Consulting's help to untangle the mess. It's going to be the deal of the year, Madeline boasted. Peter says it'll put Colin's investment right back on top. If by on top, she meant on top of every financial watchdog's investigation list, she was right. The merger wasn't just failing, it was potentially fraudulent. Another fact I knew but couldn't reveal. Yet, my phone buzzed, the real one, not the decoy on my assistant's desk. A text from my actual executive assistant hidden away in my private office. They're ready for you, Ms. Walsh. Excuse me, I stood up, gathering some random papers for show. I need to prepare the conference room for Mr. Peterson's meeting. That's right, Madeline nodded approvingly. At least you know your role now. If she only knew. I took the executive elevator, my fingerprint access hidden by a clever swipe of my assistant badge, to the top floor. There, in my private office suite, my real assistant waited with everything I needed for the meeting. Your sister seems charming, she said drily. Doesn't she? I changed quickly into my CEO outfit, hidden in a closet designed to look like a supply cabinet. The transformation was subtle but effective. Chanel suit, family pearls I'd bought back from the pawn shop where Dad had sold them, quiet confidence that came from real power rather than borrowed status. The board's concerns about the Collins merger are valid, my assistant reported, handing me the final analysis. Peter Peterson has mismanaged every aspect. Without our intervention, the firm fails, I finished. I know. I've been watching it happen for years. And now, I looked at myself in the mirror, no longer the invisible secretary but the CEO who could save or destroy my family's legacy. Now we show them exactly who they've been dismissing all these years. The conference room was prepared exactly as I'd specified. The contract sat at the head of the table, my name, my real name, prominently displayed on the signature line. In 10 minutes, Peter would walk in expecting to meet the mysterious A.C. Walsh. In 11 minutes, my family's carefully constructed world would shatter. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's letting them realize all on their own just how wrong they've been. Peter entered the conference room exactly 2 minutes late, Madeline and her entourage trailing behind him despite strict instructions that this was a private meeting. Some things never changed, they still thought rules didn't apply to them. Mr. Peterson, my assistant greeted them formally. I'm afraid this meeting is confidential. Your guests will need to wait outside. Nonsense, Madeline waved her off. We're family. And we want to see the great A.C. Walsh in action. Don't we, darlings? Her friends nodded eagerly, already scanning the room for the mysterious CEO they'd heard so much about. I sat quietly at the head of the table, my back to the door, reviewing documents as they filed in. I'm sure Walsh won't mind, Peter said confidently. After all, this is just a formality. The deal's practically done. I smiled slightly. He still hadn't learned that in business, nothing was done until the contracts were signed. Now then, Peter clapped his hands together. Where is the illustrious Walsh? Running late. Actually, I turned slowly in my chair to face them. I'm right on time. The silence that followed was absolute. Peter's face went from confident to confused to pale in the span of seconds. Madeline's perfect makeup couldn't hide her shock. Her friends froze mid-gossip, mouths hanging open. Alexandra. Peter finally managed. That's Miss Walsh in this room, my assistant corrected smoothly. Or Miss Collins Walsh if you prefer the full legal name. This is impossible, Madeline whispered. You're a secretary. An excellent cover, I agreed, standing to my full height. Amazing what people reveal when they think you're just part of the furniture. But, Peter sputtered. I've been negotiating with Walsh Consulting for months. No, I corrected him. You've been negotiating with my team. Today is the first time you're meeting the actual CEO. I gestured to the chairs. Shall we begin? Though I must insist that anyone not directly involved in the contract signing leave the room. I'm his wife, Madeline protested. I have every right. This isn't a social event, I cut her off. This is business. Real business, not the kind you're used to playing at. Her friends scurried out, already reaching for their phones. No doubt the story would be all over their social circle within minutes. You can't do this, Madeline said, but her voice had lost its usual authority. I already have. I handed her a copy of Walsh Consulting's latest annual report. Feel free to read about everything your secretary's sister has been doing while you were all busy underestimating her. After they left, Madeline practically having to be dragged out, I turned my attention to Peter. He'd sunk into a chair looking deflated. Now then, I opened the contract. Let's discuss the actual state of Colin's investment, shall we? Alexandra, listen. He tried for his usual smooth talk. Whatever you think you know. I know everything. I pulled out a detailed report. Every mismanaged account. Every covered-up loss. Every desperate attempt to hide the fact that you've been running my father's firm into the ground. His face went even paler. How? Did you really think those secretaries you ignored in every meeting weren't paying attention? That the assistant you made fetch coffee wasn't noticing the inconsistencies in your reports? I spread out the documents detailing his failures. The Miller merger fiasco. The hidden losses. The creative accounting that bordered on fraud. The only reason you haven't been investigated yet is because I've been quietly cleaning up your messes through shell companies and subsidiary consultations. But that ends today. What do you want? He asked quietly. What I've always wanted. Control of the firm that should have been mine 10 years ago. Your father will never agree. My father doesn't have a choice. I handed him another document. Walsh Consulting now owns enough of Colin's Investments debt to force a management change. Sign the contract, step down gracefully, and we'll call it restructuring. Refuse. I let the threat hang in the air. Peter stared at the contract for a long moment. We thought you weren't ambitious enough. No, I corrected him. You thought I wasn't like you. And you were right. I'm better. He signed. The news hit the financial world like a bombshell. Secret CEO revealed. Walsh Consulting's Alexandra Collins takes over family firm. The society pages had a field day. Secretary to CEO, the ultimate corporate Cinderella story. They all missed the point. This wasn't about going from secretary to CEO. It was about being CEO all along, watching and waiting while they underestimated me. Dad called first. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me? I asked. Or would you have dismissed that too as being too academic? Mom showed up at my real office. Not the assistant's desk, but the executive suite with my name on the door. Darling, we never meant to. To what? Push me aside? Treat me like I was beneath you? As you did. But that's okay. It taught me everything I needed to know about building something real. Madeline was the last to face reality. I found her sitting at my old assistant's desk one morning looking lost. He's gone, she said quietly. Peter took a job in another city. Couldn't handle the humiliation. The humiliation of failing? I asked. Or of being saved by just a secretary? She flinched. I'm sorry. We all are. I know. I sat on the edge of the desk. My old desk where I'd built an empire while they weren't looking. But sorry doesn't fix a decade of condescension. Actions do. What do you want me to do? I smiled. Learn. Start from the bottom. See what you can build when you actually work for it. She did. Started in an entry-level position at Walsh Consulting, finally learning what real business looked like. Mom stopped talking about social connections and started asking about corporate strategy. Dad, after seeing the firm's numbers under my leadership, admitted he'd been wrong about everything. The society circle that had dismissed me as just a secretary now clamored for my attention. Madeline's friends tried to pretend they'd always seen my potential. Peter's business associates scrambled to explain why they'd never noticed who was really running things. I kept my old assistant's desk. Had it moved to my executive suite as a reminder. Sometimes, during late nights reviewing contracts or planning strategies, I'd sit there instead of at my CEO desk. Not because I missed being underestimated, but to remember how far I'd come. A year later, at Walsh Consulting's annual gala, I stood at the podium preparing to give my speech. The room was filled with the same people who'd walked past my desk without a second glance, who treated me like furniture while revealing their secrets. Success isn't about titles, I told them. It's not about corner offices or family connections. It's about seeing opportunities where others see limitations. About building something real while others play at success. I saw Madeline in the audience, now working her way up through actual merit. Saw Dad finally proud for the right reasons. Saw Mom, understanding at last that social status meant nothing compared to actual achievement. 10 years ago, people in this room dismissed me as just a secretary, I continued. They never asked why someone with my qualifications would take such a position. Never wondered what I might be building while they weren't paying attention. The room was silent, remembering their own moments of casual dismissal. But here's what I learned behind that desk. Real power isn't about who you can look down on. It's about who you can lift up. Real success isn't about appearances, it's about substance. I looked at my old assistant's desk, now displayed prominently in the lobby as a reminder to never underestimate anyone. So the next time you walk past a desk, pass judgment on a title, or dismiss someone as just anything, remember this. The person you're underestimating might just be running the whole show. The applause was thunderous, but I wasn't doing this for applause. I was doing it for every person who'd ever been dismissed, overlooked, underestimated. Later that night, alone in my office, I sat at my old assistant's desk one last time. On the surface was a framed copy of the first contract I'd signed as AC Walsh, right next to a photo of me at that same desk, secretly building an empire. The nameplates told the story. Alexander Collins, executive assistant, transformed into Alexander Collins Walsh, CO. Not because I'd changed, but because they'd finally seen who I was all along. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's letting them discover how wrong they've been all by themselves. Sometimes just a secretary becomes just the CO you never saw coming. And sometimes the person they dismiss becomes the person they can't ignore. As for me, I kept building, kept growing, kept proving that success isn't about who you appear to be. It's about who you actually are. The secretary who became CEO? Well, the CEO who let them think she was just a secretary while building something greater than they could imagine. That's a difference they'll never forget.